Thank you so much, Carrie. Like you said, the construction sector has gotten the green light from the Prime Minister to go ahead and reopen. And this morning, Mr. Mahabir Singh, President of the Contractors Association of Trinidad and Tobago, is joining us inside the spotlight. Good morning, Mr. Mahabir Singh.
Good morning, Carrie and Rokas. Thank you for having the Trinidad and Tobago Contractors Association present and hosting us. We want to say good morning to Trinidad and Tobago and all your viewers. And we're here to discuss the construction sector.
Yeah, so tell me, what does the reopening mean to you?
Well, the construction sector was closed and was at stay-at-home measures since the 7th of May. Basically, the industry was closed for 8 weeks. With the Prime Minister's announcement last Saturday, the industry reopened on Monday with an overwhelming response. In fact, you had workers reporting to sites from at 6 a.m. in the morning. So very successfully in terms of you would have seen numerous reports of a lot of activity taking place across construction sites, even at the hardwares, retail, in terms of construction materials and supplies. So yesterday, again, the industry was awaiting this restart and they responded positively, contributing to the development at Trinidad and Tobago.
All right. So, and the workers they're happy to come back out to work. People are excited to get back to work.
Yes, again, part of the program in terms of the association would have joined with the Ministry of Health and UD. And at this point in time, I want to, thank all the support from UDCOT as well as the staff at UDCOT and all the volunteers that would have administered 15,000 vaccines in anticipation of the construction workers and industry coming back to operation, and that took place over three weekends.
So we saw recently that the truckers were protesting on the highway. They had a protest going on. Do you think that had anything to do with the reopening of the sector?
No, I think I don't think that would have triggered any decision. I think
it's just timing, convenient timing.
It's just a convenient timing, maybe. Again, the Prime Minister would have indicated the week prior to that state projects would have commenced.
Yeah.
I guess, with the consultation with the health officials, seeing that the numbers are reducing, again, it's efficient to open both the private and public because it's all interrelated in terms of the manufacturing side feeding into construction and projects.
Okay. So you said that the sector was down for 8 weeks. Can you give me an average of how much loss the sector suffered since? Well, actually, we could go back not just the 8 weeks, but since the start of the pandemic, because things would have had to change last year as well. Not so?
Right. Okay. So at the start of the pandemic, which have been March, April, May 2020, what really was the new changes that there were new introduction of health and safety protocols on site in terms of how workers enter the site, taking temperature, wash hand stations, sanitizing, how they treat with tools, how they interact on during the day in terms of spacing, how much workers occupy a specific space for activities. So those would have been the changes. And the industry has grown accustomed, in fact, over the last 12 months to those adjustments. It's actually second nature now. If you visit any site or any location, it's second nature. So those would have been some of the changes. With the shutdown, you would have contractors would have experienced security costs in terms of protecting their site. Would have been some level of deterioration if materials were left open, or you would have works that would have left open not completed. So those activities would have some level of rework or adjustment, which I would take it, each contractor would have a discussion with the client to come to some resolution in terms of how they treat those items going forward, and understanding that we're in a pandemic and financial resources available. So, really treat with what is the actual, what is the cost that it would have incurred as a result of those inconveniences.
Now, I know the Ministry of Finance said that it wanted to help those in the construction sector. Does that include contractors, or are we talking workers, or
well,
and also? Well, yeah, go ahead.
Rokas, so the salary relief grant was offered in
Mm-hmm.
and applications I think are still out, still it still is open. The portal is still open till the 9th of June, no 9th of July for submissions, and that's what I've covered in workers,
Mm-hmm.
construction workers for the month of June. So based on our feedback to the association, there are many workers who would have started the process at the end of June, and I would assume by the end of this week, the applications would have been lodged for processing.
So nobody has actually gotten through with it as yet.
No, the application from the reports and looking at the Ministry of Finance website,
Yeah.
the process closed on the 9th of July.
Okay.
Extended to the 9th of July.
I know they were having some difficulty identifying, how do we figure out who's legitimately a worker in the sector? So I don't know if do you think that the system they have in place will determine that legitimately, or have they come through you guys, or how does it work?
So how is processed? Again, I explored it, looking at the website. And when a worker submits their application on the online portal, they need to submit their some letter or recommendation from the employer,
Right.
which shows that they are from the industry or from a specific company for processing, as well as I think their last pay slip, and so those are the documentation. So I think the system is more or less closed in terms of verifying who really comes from the construction sector.
Right. And now that things are opening back up and have reopened, will the sector be operating with its full complement, or have we had to lay off workers as a result of some of these costs that we were talking about just now?
No, I think the sector would work with the full complement. Again, we have lost, most projects have lost 2 months in production, and we are going into the rainy season. Well, we are into the rainy season, not going into the rainy. We are into the
Properly
rainy
in.
season. So there will be some level of recovery work to be done. So I would expect that the full complement on a specific project prior to closure would be utilized. Until again the project completed.
Yeah. But in terms of contractors, I know that contractors would have lost a lot in the last 8 weeks in terms of time, and now we're saying the rainy season is going to cause some delays. How does that work in terms of being able to are contractors being paid monies that are owed to them, or are
Right.
they having to?
Well, with this restart on the 5th, again, payment to contractors would be very critical. Again,
Mm-hmm.
just to give you an indication, a contractor generally works for 1 month, 30 days, and then submits an application for payment, which the client considers and reviews and certifies in 28 days. And then the contractor is actually paid 56 days after. So when a contractor conducts work for a 1 month period, he really receives that payment 2.5 months earliest after. So one of the critical inputs in creating or retaining the construction sector at a productive level is payments. And then the cost contractors incur in terms of wages are paid on a weekly basis. So yes, when week 1, at the end of week 1, you pay wages. Materials are paid 30 days after with credit, or sometimes materials are paid in advance. So cash flow is very critical to construction and to allow construction to continue.
And has there been cash flow now that things are open back up?
Yes, there have been challenges, but they are making progress. They are making progress. There are
So
challenges. Yeah.
the contractors are confident that they are going to overcome all of these challenges.
Yeah. Well, again, you got to hope for the best. And if you have challenges, you need to work through the challenges. All in the effort of progressing.
Now, that payment system that you spoke about there, that's when the government is paying you, or is that generally? If it's a
That's
private client, if
generally,
it's a government, it doesn't matter. That doesn't sound
yeah.
like a very effective business model.
Well, it is international. It's really based on,
Mm-hmm.
what we use in Trinidad is the FIDIC form of contract, and it is accepted standard internationally.
It's interesting. Can you tell me what some of the things that these sectors learned as a result of this pandemic? Because I imagine that it would have forced people to rethink the way they do things.
Right. Okay. So one of the lessons that we have learned is really planning, because with the pandemic, it has created a significant shortage in materials. And when I mean materials, materials from our international supply level. Shipping. Shipping and freight has become much more technical. So
Mm-hmm.
we need to plan in advance because there's a possibly, in fact, there's a delay in receiving goods because of the overall demand in shipping worldwide. Um, so planning if it's one thing in terms of going forward, it's planning in terms of receiving materials and goods, um, as well as the health and safety in
Mm-hmm.
sites in terms of, again, we don't want to go back to stay-at-home measure. Um, so it's critical that, health and safety officials, site management personnel, and even at the operative level, all police in terms of the health protocols as required on site.
Mm-hmm. In terms of all these new protocols that have to take place, I imagine they would raise the cost of production, the cost of being able to operate on a daily basis.
Yes, yeah, it will be there will be an increase. So, example, you may have a multi-story building. The amount of personnel in the multi-story building that uses the lift will reduce. Whereas
Yeah.
before, you could have maybe have 8 or 10. Now we reduce to 3 or 4. So it takes much more time for people to travel up and down the building. So things like that. But again, in an effort of moving forward, um, those things could be resolved and work out through management systems and methods.
Okay. Well, I mean, I think that, I want to say congrats to the sector for being able to get back up. And how long do you think it will take before we're able to say, well, the sector is comfortably back on its feet? Because I would imagine a lot of contractors are probably now in debt or will be in debt by the end of this month with that payment system that you're talking about. You have to work for 30 days and then wait another 50 days to get paid. Like I
56.
imagine 56, yeah. I imagine that there would be some debt to be incurred going forward. But how long do you think before the sector is going to get back on its feet properly?
No, I think yesterday, based on the activities that were reported back to the association, I think all or most projects, in fact, a significant amount of projects were restarted. And during this week, you will have additional starting. I think safely by the end of next week, all construction activities or projects that was under construction prior to the lockdown would be in a state of recommencement by next week, Monday, Tuesday. Um, Again, because it has a cost for not building.
Right. And these projects that are starting back, where's the material flow coming from if we are saying that we already had these shipping problems?
No, well, again, prior to the closure, contractors would have either have materials um, being on the waters or in some level of in the process of watering. So they would have it in stock, if not in stock, soon to arrive. So I don't see that as a major challenge. But again, those things would have been part of the normal day-to-day planning process, site management, construction management effort.
All right. Well, Mr. Mahabir Singh, I want to thank you so much for joining us inside the Now Morning Show this morning and, sharing some info with us about the construction sector and the reopening, how you guys feel about it. And I imagine that you feel a sense of relief, yeah?
Yes. Again, people was looking forward to returning to work,
Mm-hmm.
and the sector is quite large, so everybody is very happy to return and
All
continue.
right. Well, I'm happy that people are able to get back to work as well because I know some people have been patiently waiting and some impatiently waiting.
Sure.
So thank you very much to the president of the Contractors Association of Trinidad and
Thank you,
Tobago.
Rokas and Kyrie. Yeah,
No
thanks.
problem. Take care. We're gonna take a
Thanks.
quick break and come back with more inside the Now Morning Show. Stay tuned.